Hello, my name is Ruby Orozco Santos. Welcome to this video on chia. I'm really excited to share this one with you, and I'm really excited to tell you a little bit of the backstory about this lesson and really to dedicate this lesson to my child who is now 7. And when he was younger, when he was a toddler, he once looked at my face and he said, "Mommy, you have a chia face." And you might not be able to tell right now, but I have freckles. And so he saw my face and thought my cheeks were speckled with chia. And as a poet, I thought that was really cool. What a great metaphor. And, that was the end of that for a while. That was several years ago. And then in some of my research in Mexican ancestral food traditions, I found something really cool. In the Florentine Codex, which documents life prior to the Spanish invasion of what is currently Mexico, there is one of the volumes, volume 11, book 11, is called Earthly Things. It's all about plants and animals and insects. And so as I was reading through this, and you'll see this in your booklet if you have it, I saw this butterfly right there in the corner. And it's called a Chian papalotl, a Chia butterfly. And just like my cheeks, the wings of this butterfly are speckled. And I thought it was so cool that my son had stumbled on this ancient metaphor. And that was really the inspiration for this lesson. This lesson, you might be accessing it through one of 2 or more booklets distributed by La Semilla Food Center's Edible Education Program. This one was the first one that came out, and then this is the most recent one. There may be others by the time you watch this video, so however you accessed it, I'm glad you're here. Welcome, and I'm looking forward to walking you a little bit through this lesson, and always starting with what students know. Oftentimes students already know a lot of things, and so that's always my go-to start. And so as you'll see in the first section, get ready to explore chia. After going through some sort of basic safety and cleanliness tips, the first question for students is, what do you already know about chia? And if you don't know very much about it, write or draw what you would like to learn. And so starting with that as a baseline is always helpful and helps to get into the topic. If you're a teacher and you're providing this lesson, you might have a conversation ahead of time, and even ask students to ask their families. There's always knowledge there in a lot of cases. And so building on that, reaffirming what families know, reaffirming the knowledge that a lot of elders carry is really important, and valuing that knowledge and then adding to it together so that we can learn more and continue to to practice these traditions. And so chia is the name of a plant and its seed. I have some here, and there's different varieties and different colors of seeds. It's also the name of the plant itself. And chia is native to Mesoamerica, and in the pre-colonial times played a it was an everyday food, just like corn and beans and tomatoes and amaranth. But like amaranth, it suffered a fate of being banned it was one of several plants that were banned. And so planting it and even possessing seeds of these plants was, punishable. And, and that's part of the reason, that's a big part of the reason why these foods don't play such a central role as they used to. But we can change that and we can bring them back and get to know them and grow them and experiment with them. Here in the El Paso and Paso del Norte region, where La Semilla is located, southern New Mexico, far west Texas, I haven't met anyone yet who grows chia. The climate might not be just right, although I have successfully grown chia sprouts. And that's as far as we've gotten them, maybe this big. And they're very nutritious as well. So if you know anyone that has grown it, send them my way. I'd love to learn more. But so yeah, it can be grown in certain climates, and it's super, super healthy for human bodies. And so part of the story is that, right, that it plays an important role in the health of indigenous people, and also is considered a sacred plant. And so these were the two reasons that these plants are banned during colonial rule, right? When the idea there is to not only take the land, but also of indigenous people, but also try to change what they believe in and what they think. And so ceremonial plants were often banned for these reasons. Now, luckily, in every generation, there are people who continue the traditions, and thanks to them, people like that in the past, we are able to, to continue to enjoy these wonderful food, plant relatives, and get to know them. So let's talk a little bit about that chia face of mine. When my son said, "You have a chia face," he was using a metaphor. And so a metaphor is a phrase that you use to describe something in a way that isn't literally true, but it helps people to understand the idea. So when somebody says, my mouth is on fire, I'm eating this food and my mouth is on fire, we know that they're not literal flames coming out of that person's mouth, but that person is experiencing heat in their mouth. It might be a very spicy food. It might even be a scalding kind of hot food. So that's a metaphor. Your mouth is on fire. You have a chia face, sort of a literal description that's not literally true. And so Chia Butterfly is a butterfly that speckles, right? My chia face is a face with freckles. And so there are food metaphors all over the world. Another literary technique is called a simile. And a simile is kind of like a metaphor, but it uses the words like and as most of the time. So whereas a metaphor describes something literal, my mouth is on fire, a simile would use the words like or as. It's like my mouth is on fire, for example. And so those are really helpful tools that paint a picture in our minds about what what we're experiencing, so we can communicate it to other people. And there are a lot of food metaphors from all over the world. I found a pretty cool article out of the East Bay Eats publication. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, East Bay Eats. Anna Mendes wrote an article called Food Speaks in Many Tongues, and gathered a lot of food metaphors and similes there. So I'm sharing some of those here in this lesson. And I think my favorite one here comes out of Iraq, and it says, she is like a tomato, meaning it's a compliment that means someone is really easy to get along with in any situation, kind of like how tomatoes are. So I really love that. And you might read more there in the book, and maybe you want to come up with your own food metaphors, plant metaphors. I think what's exciting about plant and food metaphors is that they tell us that the person using them has a relationship with those foods, right? So the reason that my son was able to say, I have a chia face, is because he had chia since he was a baby and he knew what it looked like and he had a relationship with that food. My grandmother used to say, we were at a wedding once and she said somebody was dancing like a pumpkin seed in a skillet, como pepita en comal. Um, and if you've ever roasted pumpkin seeds, you might know that they kind of jump around a little. And so that's the way this man was dancing. It was a very great way to describe how he was dancing. And, you know, the reason that she was able to say that is because she regularly roasted pumpkin seeds in a comal, in a skillet. And so she had that relationship. And so when we play with food metaphors and food similes and maybe come up with our own, it means that we have an understanding of seeds and plants and foods, and we know what they're like, we know how they behave in certain situations, we know who they get along with or not, and all of that speaks to a rich relationship that we are developing and cultivating with those ingredients. So that's why for me it's really exciting to think about food metaphors and similes. In this lesson, I invite young people and people of all ages really to work on a chia butterfly. So inspired by that butterfly that's described in the Florentine Codex, you can draw an outline of a butterfly on a page. It's a really nice exercise in symmetry too. You might print one from the internet and then color it in. I use markers to color mine in. You can use markers, you can use paint and let it dry, crayons, whatever you'd like. And then once it's colored in, use some glue, maybe a glue stick or some liquid glue. If you use a glue stick, I would recommend make it nice and thick when you lay it on there. And then sprinkle some chia seeds on top to make your own chia butterfly. And then enjoy your art. I used yellow because I thought that the seeds would pop against the yellow background. In this lesson, the recipe that we're inviting you to prepare is a simple chia drink. I used lemon, yellow lemon for mine, so back there. You can use limes or you can use lemons to juice a little bit and then mix with water and a little bit of sweetener, maybe some honey or some sugar, and then sprinkle in some chia seeds. This is sort of a classic way to have chia. The people in the current state of Chihuahua, Mexico, the Tarahumara people are famously use chia, rely on chia to sustain their energy for those long runs. And so chia does have a ton of nutrients. Let me share some of those with you. It has really, truly a shocking amount of calcium. It has a lot of protein. It has good fats, those omega-3 fatty acids that are kind of rare in the plant world. Chia is one of the sources. Purslane is another. Flax seed, especially if it's ground. So once you soak the chia, you might see after a few minutes sort of a little halo around it of mucilage, and that's sort of those are those good fats. from the seeds that are making themselves known. It also is, so it's very supportive for bone health, muscle strength, and brain health. So just 1 ounce of chia contains 18% of the recommended daily intake for calcium. And so if you think about it, that's really exciting because a lot of people in our community might be lactose intolerant. And so this is a wonderful way to get some calcium. Chia is still used today in a lot of recipes, both traditional and new. You might have had a chia pudding, maybe. Chia egg is a substitute for baking. There's a lot of ways to use it. And so the chia drink is a really simple way to add protein, add good fats, add calcium to our bodies. And you can also simply add it to plain water. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a lemonade, but it's nice when it is. And so just be careful if you are a student, if you're a young person and you're working with a knife to cut your lemon or lime, you might need to ask a grown-up for help, and get that safely cut. And then play with the dilution, the amount of lemon juice in water or lime juice, so that you can experiment with how much you need for it to taste good to you. So I always hesitate to use measurements because I think that tasting and fine tuning is a really important part of the process. So there's I did measure them for this recipe, and there's some suggested. That's a suggestion, but you can always fine tune a little bit for your own taste buds. And in this concluding section for the chia lesson, we review one way chia is good for our bodies. We provide an opinion about why the Spanish banned chia, if you can remember, and why do you think people continue to grow it? Write a food metaphor or simile, and then did you adjust the recipe to your sense of taste? If so, how? In addition to the lesson, I wanted to share with you here in this video a few ideas about additional activities that might be fun for students and families to do. One is a sensory bowl, which I've done with toddlers and preschoolers at a daycare center. And so putting some chia in a bowl and adding water, waiting a while to make that mucilage come out, and it gets kind of slimy and fun. And it's a really nice contrast to touch the dry chia bowl and then the wet, slimy chia bowl. It's a really fun sensory experience. There are on the internet a couple of cool tutorials and articles about chia sprouts, different ways of growing chia sprouts, and also even a homemade chia pit. And I think that uses maybe a sock or a stocking with some soil, and you can add a little face to it. And there's really cool ideas out there for activities to do with chia. I invite you to get to know this food either for the first time or more deeply. And I look forward to more of these lessons with you in the future, and hope that you had an enjoyable experience with this lesson. Bye-bye.